Hi everyone, welcome to week 2 of English 101 Online. This video is going to talk about drafting our first essay and just some tips to keep in mind, particularly when you organize your writing and when you think about introductions and conclusions, which are pieces of essay that often we struggle with. And then there are also some reminders in here, like signing up for a conference for week 3 and also completing the reflection for this week. So let's go ahead and get started. Week 2 is going to be focusing, like I said, on organizing your writing. So now that we've kind of done thesis statements in week 1 and you've got an idea of what you want to say, now you want to think about the order in which you're going to say it and how you want to kind of piece your ideas together. I'm not saying that you have to have a clear, perfect plan going into your draft. That's not it at all. But you might think about some specifics that we're going to talk about this week. So the readings for this week include a section of you writing that talks about organizing and different options for organizing, a piece on narrative writing, and then a video called I Survived a Terrorist Attack, Here's What I Learned. This is a good example of a story that could make a good inspiration for this essay. Then you're going to want to complete reflection 2 for this week. There's only one this week. Sign up for a one-on-one conference for me during week 3. And then submit your essay 1 draft sometime between Saturday and Monday. During conferences next week, what we're going to do is look at your draft together and kind of talk about, okay, how the course is going so far, what do you want to improve with your draft, and then some plans for revising. All right, so conferences. I know it might sound intimidating if you've not done conferences before, but I promise that these are beneficial and they are a way for you and I to get to know each other a little better, but also for you to voice any concerns that you have or kind of any issues you're having right now. So we'll have 2 conferences this semester, one during Essay 1 and one during Essay 4. You are more than welcome to meet with me more than those times if you would like to during my office hours. But these are the 2 times during the semester that I found it most helpful to kind of meet with you guys and look at your essay. So make sure you sign up for a conference. I'll send a link out at the beginning of week 2 and then also throughout the week. So make sure that you attend your conference. They're usually about 10 minutes long, not very much time. I know that we're all busy people, but 10 minutes, I promise, will be a big benefit to you. All right, so last week we talked about the writing process, and we are sort of at the drafting stage in this process. So we did some pre-writing last week, and now we just want to kind of take those ideas and get them on paper, regardless of whether they are good, whether they are perfect, whether you feel like you're saying the right thing or not. This is just about, okay, getting them out of your head and on to something else. So the readings this week are going to focus on organizing. Some things to think about when you're organizing this first essay is that often if you're telling a story, these typically go from beginning to end. But that may not always be the best way to organize what you're talking about. Maybe you want to focus more on the end first and then kind of backtrack. Think about different movies that you've seen that start at the end and then go, oh, how did we get here? Or think about what might have the most impact. And we're obviously going to do some reorganizing when we revise next week. So don't feel like you have to have the perfect part now. Are there parts of the story that you could skip? I think sometimes when we use narratives or things that have happened to us, for our perspective, the entire thing is important. And sometimes when you think about it through another person's eyes, you don't need the whole story. They're just looking for the most important part, right? What do they need to know? What are they learning from your experience? But I want you to think specifically this week in your draft about how you want to start and how you want to end. So there are 2 handouts on Brightspace, one related to introductions. And this handout gives you some examples of different types of introductions. So this is a really good way to think about how you want your introduction to kind of set up the context for the rest of your essay. And it's a way, I like the idea of, if you think of Spider-Man creating webs between different places, I want your introduction to create a web that sort of encapsulates the rest of what you're going to talk about. So that handout gives you some good examples, and I'd like you to read that over and maybe choose one that you'd like to try for this essay. Some of them are better than others, but what you want to do is kind of stretch yourself a little bit. All right, and then the other thing you want to think about are conclusions. So conclusions are often a thing that I know my students in 101 struggle with because we put a lot of pressure on how you end your writing. This is your last chance to kind of get your point across, impress your reader, to sort of give your final, here's why we just read this whole thing. And if your conclusion falls flat, then really the rest of the draft might also be ineffective. So there's also a handout on Brightspace on conclusions and what you should typically include. So I know sometimes people are like, oh, I want to summarize what I said and end there. And honestly, your conclusion should really do more than just summarize. I want it to really emphasize that thesis. Tell me, why was this important? Why does your reader want to know about this? Why have you written this? And your kind of thesis or your point can change. So if you end up in a different place than you started with, that's actually not always a bad thing. So for example, this is the conclusion that I'm sharing with permission from a student that wrote about travel baseball. So when I read through this, I want you to ask yourself what grade you would give this. So the student said, travel baseball changed everything for me. It filled a void inside of me and gave me true happiness for the 9 years I played. There was ups and downs, but I always found myself happy at the end of the day doing what I love. I hope one day my kids can experience travel baseball and it can impact them like it did me, because it really is more than just playing the game. It's the experiences you learn around the game of baseball. What do we think? I'm going to tell you what I think. I think that this is a decent conclusion. I would probably give this about average, maybe a C. Only because I do feel like it's a little general. And it does sort of just repeat what the student had already said in their essay. But it does kind of give, it at least sort of ends in some way. So if your draft has a conclusion like this, I think we have a great place to start. I might encourage the student to focus more on that, passing these experiences on to their kids. What were some of those experiences? How did it fill this void? Maybe pick one of these ideas to really hone in on. All right, let's look at another example. So this student said, I think it's crazy from the time you're born, you only know what someone has taught you, leaving you wondering, is this the reason for all the pain I endure? But what you learn as a parent is all you have to offer. To know everything this child endures is because of you. That right there makes me a mom. Makes being a mom, sorry, I can't read today. That right there makes being a mom, a single mom at that, such a heart-filled task. I can't fail because then I fail him. I can't cheat myself because then I cheat him. That's why I'm back in school, starting my business, working, and taking care of him. I want to be better so I can teach him better. This is really getting much closer to what you want a conclusion to do. It focuses just very specifically on why the student is writing about being a single parent. And I do also really like the sort of alliteration of the I can't fail because then I fail him, I can't cheat because I cheat myself. That really gives kind of a punchy ending. So if in your final draft, your conclusion looks something more like this, then you are doing great. But that conclusion handout should also help you. I'm not saying that you have to emulate or you have to write exactly like this, but I just want you to think about how you want to end your draft. All right, so finally, your draft is due between Saturday and Monday. I give you that window because I'll start looking at them on Saturday, but I know some of us work over the weekends and, maybe Monday is when you really have time to kind of finish up, but I don't want you to start wait to start until Monday, all right? So 3 to 4 pages. Remember your thesis that we worked on in week 1. Give as much detail as you can to kind of support that answer to the question you chose. And most importantly, drafts don't have to be perfect. They just have to be written. All right? So get your thoughts down, and then in conferences next week, we will talk about them. And I will see you guys then.